So how about these kids? Aren't they great? Aren't they great? You know, as a pastor, you know you've succeeded in something when you see everybody smiling. You were all smiling during the Alleluia. You know, not that you normally don't smile, but you're really smiling. And you know what? I even caught some of the teenagers looking over, smiling. You know you succeeded, and I saw you do it. Well, what strikes you from the gospel today? This is one of those great gospels that I think every single phrase has got tremendous meaning. You know, great lines. Go out a short distance. Put out into the deep. We've been at it all night. A great number of fish. Get away from me. I like that one. Get away from me. I'm a sinful man. Fall to your knees. Do not be afraid. All those are great little phrases. All 7 of them really could be a full homily in and of themselves. And you know I could do that. But we have 5:30 Mass, so you're safe. Pick one right now, maybe in your own mind, for you to take home to think about. And the one, really 2 that I'll combine for us to reflect on right now. Do you want to go out a short distance, or do you want to put out into the deep? It's really a basic choice for us in our lives. Do you simply want to go out a short distance from the shore, or do you really want to put out into the deep? And what does it really mean to put out into the deep? What does that really mean? Well, if you think for a moment, they've been fishing all night. Jesus gets into the boat, he preaches, and then tells them to go out into the deep. Who is really the one in charge of that boat? Who is the commander of the ship? Was it Simon Peter? Or was it Jesus? It's really Jesus. Simon Peter owned the boat, and he was in charge until the moment that Jesus got there. But it was Jesus giving the order. He was the commander of that ship. Who was the master, the leader of all the fishermen who've been working hard all night? Was it their boss, Peter, paying their paycheck? No, it was Jesus. They listened to what he had to say. Jesus was really the commander of the ship, and Jesus was really the leader of all of the men on the ship. And Jesus is our commander, both you and me, giving us direction today in our life. And what is that direction? Don't just stay a short distance away on the shore, go out into the deep. Well, that passage really refers to the church as a whole. Peter is the vicar of Christ. Peter, now Francis, the new Peter, represents Christ. When Francis speaks, it is Christ speaking to us today. Do you believe that? Christ also asked Peter to govern the church. Christ also addresses each one of us in those words. Put out into the deep. What does that mean? Basically, cast aside whatever makes you a coward in living your faith. Tough word I used, coward. But sometimes aren't we cowards to live our faith? Go out into the deep. Well, you know, Wednesday begins Lent. How many of you just put the tree down? I put the last boxes in the basement Sunday. You know, had to get it down in time. I still have my Christmas decorations up in my office. They're there out of spite because somebody in the office keeps leaving me notes to tell me to take them down. They'll come down by Wednesday. Is this Lent going to be a time for you just to stay a little distance off the shore? Or is this Lent going to be a time for you to go out into the deep? What kind of a Lent is it? You have a few days to plan. Are you going to give up candy or ice cream or donuts? That's shallow on short distance of the shore. Or are you going to go out into the deep? Well, what does that mean for us? I think for all of us there's some serious things to look at in our lives we could tackle this Lent. I looked at the Buffalo News this morning. I don't always get to do that. And the first section of the paper I look at, who wants to guess? What is the first section I look at? Sports? Somebody said sports. I heard that. Sports. No, I don't look at that first. My father always told me to look at the comics first. He said, first of all, they're the best part of the paper, and it's probably where you're going to get the most truth, the comics. But I look at the editorial page first. That's my first, primarily to make sure nobody wrote one about something I said in a homily. That's really where I go. And if you looked at the paper today, there's a great editorial calling us to go out into the deep. It was written by a Pentecostal minister, the Reverend Darren Drismala. He writes, titled, "Embracing Biblical Values is the Only Way to Save America." He writes, "Now that the Iowa caucus is over and the rest of the primaries have begun, the question is, do the Republicans or Democrats have the answer? As a conservative and fundamentalist preacher, I state no. What America needs is a Bible revival for survival." I can see that on a marquee of a church. "America needs to return to biblical values." How many of you agree on that one? America needs to agree to come to biblical values. "The sanctity of life for unborn children, a return to traditional marriage between a man and a woman, teaching young people saved sex till marriage, not safe sex, and the need to teach scientific creationism, not secular humanism or atheism or socialism. America needs to fall down on its knees and turn to Jesus. If we don't do this, we will cease as a nation of greatness." Going out to the deep. I don't know about you, but since the caucuses are over, I've had many a conversation about politics, off the record. I can't talk too much about them from up here, but we all have them. How many of you have had a conversation about the Democrats, the Republicans, any of the primary things, any of the, comedy hours, debates? And, I get my political plug in there once in a while. Do you go out into the deep? Are you willing to stand as a Catholic in those discussions with family members, with friends, co-workers? Are you willing to go out into the deep and stand for the value of the gospel that we gather every Sunday to hear and in this great nation have the freedom to still preach? Will you go out into the deep when it comes to your vote for the next president? Always important to vote for the next president. This one will get, I'm told, to appoint 3 members to the Supreme Court. Very important position. Are you going to go out into the deep and vote based on the truth of what we believe as Catholics, or will we succumb to some other political, social, or acceptable thinking? Are you going to go out into the deep? And throughout Lent, are we going to really try to study more what does our faith call us to in these issues of economics and morality and social policy, whereas our Catholicism speak to each and every one of them? Will we go out into the deep during Lent to study that and know that, or will we just remain shallow near the shore? Go out into the deep. Is there any addiction in your life? I am confronted daily with individuals who struggle with addictions. It's addictions to alcohol, addictions to drugs, addictions to pornography. the three key ones. And there are so many resources to assist those with addictions. Will you go out into the deep if you're struggling with one of these or some other addiction, anger, language, physical abuse? Will you go out into the deep this Ash Wednesday and through Lent to do something? Call one of the priests, call myself, Father Tom. Father Sibby's he's recovering well, but he's on sick leave. But we got time for you. Will you go out into the deep? Or are you going to remain shallow in your life if you have that struggle? I'd love to drive down the street someday and see house after house. I know we're not allowed to put these out at the curb anymore, but I'd still love to see it. I'd love to see all of the television sets and all of the computers lined up for the trash pickup, because these things have become not only an instrument of great communication, but also an instrument of great destruction in people's lives. Will you put out into the deep if that's a challenge for you, and throw that computer out if that's the downfall or the television? Perhaps going out to the deep this Lent will mean paring back on some things the family does. You know, too much of a good thing isn't good for you. And we have so many families and running in so many circles that often we lose the very meaning of what it means to be a family. Maybe going out to the deep is going to mean, you know what, this year you're not going to be in the musical. Maybe go out into the deep means, this year you're not going to be on this particular team. Maybe going out into the deep means, this year you're not going to participate in that extracurricular activity. And going out to the deep means maybe I'm going to give something up in my adult life too, so we can simply be a family together. And I guarantee if you try to do that, it's going to be, World War III in the house initially. But are you willing to go out into the deep? What is our Vicar of Christ, Francis, calling us to? Mercy. Have you gone out into the deep to understand that? I asked you to do that starting December the 8th, to write down what mercy means to you and to daily reflect on the meaning of mercy and your ability to reflect it. Have you gone out into the deep, or are you still shallow at the shore, not taking it seriously? But our vicar, Jesus himself, is speaking to us, telling us we need to understand mercy. Are you willing to go out into the deep during Lent and open that Bible daily to find those passages on mercy? And if you don't know them, call me. I can give you a whole list of them. Are we willing to go out into the deep? So as we get ready for Lent, simply pick one area of your life and go out into the deep. Get away from the shallow end of the shore. Even if you feel like you've been at it all night, go out into the deep. And if you go out into the deep, I guarantee you by Easter Sunday you'll already see a great number of fish, meaning you'll see some changes in your life. And what really hinders us from going out into the deep? Go away, I'm a sinful man. Unworthiness. Very often we feel we're unworthy to do that, and often those little areas is where the devil comes in the most to work on us. Feelings of unworthiness, or you're not strong enough to accomplish that, so don't bother. That stops us from going out in the deep. Sometimes the justification of sin, well, everyone else does it, it's where culture is today, prevents us from going out in the deep. What hinders you from going out into the deep? And where do you really begin to go out into the deep? What my colleague of the Fundamentalist Church said in the paper today, what our mutual vicar, Jesus himself, said, get down on your knee. Get down on your knee. Fall to your knee in prayer, meaning humility, to accept that word of God is correct. And simply do not be afraid to do it.